Summary of Kafka on the Shore by Haruki Murakami. Kafka Tamura is sitting in his dad's office. Kafka has chosen that on his 15th birthday, he will leave his home in Tokyo and go somewhere else. Crow, an imaginary person Kafka talks to for help when he's in a tough position, tells Kafka to be tough and strong. Kafka packs a knife, some money, and a picture of himself and his older sister on the beach when Kafka was a child. He feels like he is getting ready for a trip that will change him for the rest of his life. His older sister and mother left the family when he was only 4 years old, so this is the only thing he remembers about them. Kafka has spent years getting stronger physically and mentally so he can run away from his cruel father and live on his own. But he is afraid that no matter how far he goes, he will never be able to get away from a bad sign that follows him everywhere. Kafka gets on a bus to go to Shikoku, which is in western Japan. He only has a bag with him. Kafka meets a girl named Sakura who is a few years older than him at a rest stop along the way. He likes her, but he worries that she might be his long-lost sister, as he does with all women Sakura's age. They both agree that meeting people by chance is important and might even be a sign of fate. When they get to the town of Takamatsu, Sakura gives Kafka her phone number. Kafka doesn't know what to do, so he goes to the Kimura Memorial Library. There, he meets Oshima, a well-dressed young librarian, and Miss Siki, the library's manager, who is a very beautiful middle-aged woman. The idea that she could be his mother hits Kafka hard. Over the next week, Kafka gets into a pattern of being alone. He goes to the gym in the mornings and reads in the library in the afternoons. He becomes friends with Oshima. During the same time, a strange event is told in a set of declassified U.S. Army papers from World War II. A country elementary school teacher named Setsuko Okamochi took a group of kids to a hill to look for mushrooms. All of the kids fell down at once. Even though the children were asleep, their eyes were moving quickly back and forth, almost as if their minds were doing something different from their bodies. Setsuko ran to get help, but a nearby doctor didn't know what to do. Soon, the kids started to wake up on their own. They seemed fine and didn't remember what had happened. All of the children woke up except for one. Satoru Nakata, a smart young boy who had been moved from Tokyo to the country, stayed in a coma for weeks. Doctors and experts who were interviewed about Nakata's case said that it made no sense to them. Finally, Nakata woke up on his own, but he couldn't remember anything, unlike the other children. Even his ability to read and write was gone, and he never got it back. Even though the formal record stops there, Setsuko wrote in a letter many years later that she thought she was to blame for what happened. Today, Nakata is an old man. He sits in an empty lot in Tokyo and talks to a black cat. Even though he lost his memory and ability to read and write as a child, Nakata got the ability to talk to cats. He now uses this skill in his part-time job looking for lost house cats. He is looking for a cat named Goma right now. Koamura, a slightly crazy cat, and Mimi, an elegant Siamese cat, help Nakata track down Goma to the green lot where she was last seen. There, Nakata waits, hoping that Goma will come back. He hears from other cats that a bad man has been coming there. Soon, a big, mean-looking dog shows up at the lot. Nakata leads the dog to the house of Johnny Walker, a mysterious guy who dresses like the logo for Johnny Walker brand whiskey. Johnny Walker tells Nakata that he can help him find Goma, but only if Nakata helps him as well, by killing him. Johnny Walker says that he kills cats so he can take their souls and use them to make a magical flute. Unless Nakata kills Johnny Walker, he will kill Goma and Mimi. Nakata watches as Johnny Walker cuts up 3 other cats with more and more fear until he can't take it any longer. He uses a kitchen knife to stab Johnny Walker and grabs Goma and Mimi, whom Johnny Walker was about to kill. Nakata gives Goma back to her family and tries to go to the police, but they think he is crazy. The next day, he will leave Tokyo. Back in Takamatsu, Kafka wakes up outside with blood on his shirt and no memory of the last few hours. He calls Sakura out of fear and goes to her apartment to tell her about his family. He spends the night there, and while they talk about his sister, she makes him have an orgasm. The next day, Kafka goes to the library and tells Oshima that he needs a place to stay. Oshima tells Kafka that he will ask Miss Siki if he can stay in the library, and in the meantime, he takes him to a house in the woods. During the drive, Oshima says that he has hemophilia and often thinks about his own death, which he avoids by listening to music. Kafka spends the next couple of days exploring the woods around the house, talking to Crow, and coming to terms with the forest's crushing loneliness. Oshima tells Kafka about Miss Siki's past as they drive back to the library. Her childhood sweetheart died when they were both very young, and ever since then, Miss Siki has been cold and bored. Kafka on the Shore, a song she wrote for her boyfriend when they were young, is something she won't listen to. The next day, two women go to the library and say that it's not comfortable for women. They say that Oshima is being sexist because of this. He tells them that he is gay and has changed his gender. While this is going on, Nakata is hitchhiking west and getting rides on different cars. He eventually meets Hoshino, a young man who goes through life looking for short-term relationships and a new Hawaiian shirt every few weeks. Hoshino feels attracted to Nakata, so he takes a few days off work to help him get to Takamatsu, a place he feels drawn to but doesn't know why. Nakata says they have to find the entrance stone, a strange white stone with magical powers that only Nakata knows about. After looking for days in library books and travel sites without success, an old man who calls himself Colonel Sanders and dresses like him approaches Hoshino. Hoshino goes with Colonel Sanders to a Shinto shrine, where he finds the entrance stone. Then, he carries the rock back to Nakata. They think about what to do for a while, and then Nakata tells them that they need to turn the stone over to open a door to another world. Hoshino does this with a lot of work because the stone has become so heavy that it seems to have come from another world. Soon, he thinks that his friendship with Nakata is more important than going back to work. At the library, Oshima shows Kafka a newspaper article that says Kafka's famous artist father was killed by a knife. Even though he was far away when the murder happened, Kafka feels like he was to blame. He tells Oshima about the sign that made him leave home. Kafka's father told him that he would kill him and sleep with his mother and sister, just like the Oedipus myth. Over the next few nights, a ghost who looks like Miss Siki when she was young shows up in Kafka's room. Listening to the song Kafka on the Shore piques his interest, and he starts to think that he and Miss Siki are being pulled together. He also starts to think that Miss Siki is his mother, even though she says she is not. Kafka and the real Miss Siki soon start making out. She feels like she's making up for the time she lost with her boyfriend, and he wants to make up for his bad past. As the cops look harder for the person who killed Kafka's father, Hoshino and Nakata move into an apartment that Colonel Sanders gives them. As they try to figure out what to do next, they start driving around the city. Oshima is also worried about how the search is going and how close Kafka is to Miss Siki. He brings Kafka back to the cottage. Kafka has a dream that he raped Sakura, which makes him feel bad about himself. Kafka is very lonely and feels stuck by the forecast his father made. He goes into the dark woods in order to get away or die. Eventually, he meets two men in World War II uniforms who say they will take him to a secret entrance. He follows them to the bottom of a steep valley, where he finds a group of small houses that look a lot like Oshima's. He is left in one of the houses by the guards. After driving around for days without a plan, Nakata and Hoshino find the Kimura Memorial Library. Nakata feels drawn to go inside. He talks to Miss Siki there. They feel a bond right away. She tells him that her memories of the past make her feel stuck. He tells her that he feels just as trapped by not being able to remember things. Miss Siki gives Nakata a stack of files that have her life story written in them. Hoshino and Nakata burned the files without reading them when she asked them to. When Oshima goes to Miss Siki's office at the end of the day, he finds her face down and dead on her desk. When Hoshino and Nakata get back to the apartment, Nakata also dies in his sleep, leaving Hoshino to wonder what to do with the doorstone. After a few days, a black cat shows up and tells Hoshino that something will try to get through the door and he will have to kill it. Sure enough, a long, pale thing that looks like a snake comes out of Nakata's dead body and starts moving toward the stone. Hoshino tries to kill it but fails, so he figures out that he needs to close the door by turning the stone over. Again, it takes almost all of his strength, but he gets the job done. Then he is able to kill the thing. Hoshino leaves the flat after making a promise to remember Nakata. During a short break, Crow, who looks like a real crow, rounds the forest. He sees a man with a black silk hat and a red tracksuit. The man tells Crow that he makes flutes out of the souls of cats and that he is going to the place where he can make the biggest flute of all. He says that where they are now, in the bush, is like limbo because the man has died and is now a soul in between places. Crow can't hurt him, he says, but Crow is welcome to try. Crow picks out the man's eyes, but the man just laughs. Crow rips out his tongue, and he laughs even though he can't make any noise. It sounds almost like a flute when they wheeze. Miss Siki's younger self seems to cook Kafka's meals in the house in the valley. He is so happy to see her, but he soon finds out that she doesn't remember anything from the past. If he doesn't leave soon, he will also lose his memories. Miss Siki, a middle-aged woman, shows up in the afternoon and tells Kafka that he must leave the valley. Again, he asks her if she is his mother. Miss Siki's only answer is that she once left someone she shouldn't have, and she asks Kafka if he can forgive her. He forgives her, and in his head, he also forgives his mother. He feels like a part of his heart that had been frozen has melted. Miss Siki pricks her arm with a hairpin and lets Kafka drink some of her blood. She then leaves the house and falls back through the woods to Oshima's cabin. Kafka is driven back to the library by Oshima's brother. There, he tells Oshima that he is chosen to go back to school in Tokyo. They say they'll see each other again someday. Kafka also says goodbye to Sakura over the phone, calling her his sister with love. Kafka gets on the train to go back home and thinks about everything that has happened to him.
About the author. Murakami was born in Kyoto, Japan, during the baby boom that followed World War II. He grew up in Nishinamiya, Ashiya, and Kobe. As a kid and teen, Murakami was interested in Western culture. He read books by Kurt Vonnegut, Charles Dickens, and Franz Kafka, among others. After Murakami graduated from Waseda University in 1973, he worked in a record store for a while before he and his wife opened a small jazz bar. Murakami was at a baseball game one day when he had the wild idea that he could become a writer. He started writing that night. Since then, Murakami's strange books and short stories have won him praise all over the world. Most of Murakami's books combine magical realism or nonsense with everyday life to create worlds that are both scary and funny. He has said, writing a novel is like having a dream. His work has been put into more than 50 different languages. In 2006, Murakami became the sixth person to win the Franz Kafka Prize, which is given to writers whose works are a testimony about our times.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.